Welcome back. In the previous episode, we have talked about Odoo in general. Now let's move on and talk about installing Odoo on your local machine. There are actually a couple of ways to install Odoo on your local machine, and in this video, we're also going to figure out what's the best method for installing Odoo according to your needs. And actually, Odoo has made a good documentation on installing Odoo depending on your operating system. You just need to go to this particular URL and select for your particular version that you're using. In this case, I'm gonna be using version 14, so I select this one. And if you happen to be using an older version, you will not gonna see the version listed here. So what you should do is basically just copy this and just change the version directly. For example, I'm gonna be going to version 10, and here you go, version 11, and so on and so forth. So Odoo also has documentation on the older version. So as you can see, there are a couple of ways to install Odoo, and these are the methods which are, this is actually not installing Odoo on your local machine. This is basically just a web demonstration of Odoo. And as for the package installers, this is kind of a setup or installer, just a regular installer for installing application. So you can run it and install it, and Odoo will be installed in your local machine in one setup. So this is actually useful if you're just testing Odoo, but it's less flexible because in this setup, Odoo will install a particular version of Python and a particular version of PostgreSQL. In reality, you may want to install any other particular version of PostgreSQL and any other version of Python. So if that's the case, you may want to install using the source install method. This is basically you cloning the Odoo repository for a particular version, and then you install the dependency all by yourself. This is great because it offers more flexibility so that you can install any version of libraries and dependencies that you want. And the last option is to use Docker. So yes, Odoo is also available in Docker. So if you go to hub.docker.com and let's search for Odoo. Here you can see that there is an official Odoo image, but the official Odoo image only support version from 13 up to 15. So if you're using older version than that, then currently it is not supported by Odoo. And the methods that I'm gonna be showing to you guys is package installers, because it's very simple, and source install. But please take a note that package installer only available for Windows and Ubuntu, I mean Linux. So it's not currently available, as I know, in Mac OS. And I'm gonna be using Windows to do that. And as for the second method, I'm gonna be using WSL, which is Windows sub Linux. So it should work irrespective to the operating system you use. If you use Mac OS, then you can run dual boot on your operating system. Or if you use Linux, then it's good for you. If you use Windows and want to do this technique, then you can also install WSL like me, or you can also run dual boot on your operating system. And as for the Docker method, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna be explaining this because it's gonna be so lengthy. We're gonna be wasting so much time without talking anything related to Odoo. So I leave this in to you if you want to learn it yourself. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. Now in package installers, there are actually two ways that you can install Odoo. The first way is that you can install it from Nightly server. I'm gonna be talking later. And you can also install it from the official download page. In the Nightly page, the Odoo team actually updates the Odoo version every single night. So if you click one of the versions right here, you can see a lot of versions of Odoo that you can install. So I don't know how the mechanism, but probably they are fetching every single night from the Odoo repository that is also available in GitHub. So if I take a look on one of the versions, so for example for version 14, so they did some commit, and for every night, like the Odoo team gonna be uploading here for the latest version that is available in the Odoo repository. So you can do that if you want to get the closest possible to the Odoo repository, but I'm just gonna be using the official download page that Odoo offers. So this one right here. So to download Odoo, you first need to fill up the form that is available. So type your company. In my case, let's say just Coding for Life, and your name, your phone number, your email, and then your interest. So basically, you use Odoo for what? In my case, I'm a student, and the company size. So I chose less than 5 employees. Okay, now click download on the version that you want to install. In my case, I'm gonna be using Odoo version 14. Click download and just wait until the installation finishes. Okay, after the download finished, now let's open the setup. Select your language. In my case, okay, it's English, and click next. I agree. So in this prompt, basically it's asking you what components you want to install. Just go ahead and install the components. And this part right here, this is the information or the credential that Odoo is going to use to connect to the database. So in my case, I'm just gonna leave everything to default. Click next and select the destination folder that you want Odoo to be installed in. In my case, I'm just gonna be installing in program files, and I'm gonna be creating a new folder named Odoo right here, and click install. And after that, you just have to wait until all the installation finish. Okay, now the installation has been completed. We can go ahead and click next and click finish and start Odoo if you want to start Odoo right away. Okay, now click finish. Here you can see Odoo is installed perfectly in your local machine. And here you are brought to a page asking you to complete the database information. And for now, I'm just skipping because this is going to be explained in the next section in the next video. And there's a thing that I want to tell.
if you go to the services, and if you search for Odoo, now you got something here. You got Odoo server 14, which the status is running. So if you, for example, stop this and refresh the page, you're not going to be seeing anything. So to run Odoo, you can run it from here. Start, click start, and it will run the server again. And if you refresh it, now the page is back. And because the installation already come up with PostgreSQL, so if you take a look, so if you search for PostgreSQL, here you can see PostgreSQL for Odoo. It is also running. So by default, when you start your computer, Odoo server and PostgreSQL for Odoo will run automatically. So if you, for example, stop this and refresh the page again, you're not going to be able to do that. And if you take a look at the Odoo folder and go to my destination location of Odoo, and if you take a look at server and go to this particular file, this is to show the logging message when our application run. So the last message that we've received is that we cannot connect to the local host because the connection is not ready. That is because we stopped the PostgreSQL to run. So if we start again and we refresh, now the page is coming back. And when you start the Odoo application and keep it running, it will actually logging the application. So if I open up the file again, now you can see the log is coming, which is the get request. Because we enter this page, get request mean we visit a page of a website. So if we, for example, refresh this, we send a get request to the browser. And if we reopen the file, here you can see a new log coming in. So that's one way to run Odoo by using the services. You just need to stop and start or even pause. But I actually don't recommend you to do this because you're not getting the logging information right away. You have to take a look at this particular file, which is not good for development. So what I like to do usually, I just stop this and also go to the Odoo, and I also stop this. And now to run the server, oh yeah, there's something that I forgot to say. If you install Odoo by using all-in-one package, just like we did before, you will also receive Python immediately in the Odoo destination folder right here. So you don't actually need to install any other Python. because Odoo already contains a Python interpreter that we will be using for. So if you go to the server and we want to open some console, in this case I'm going to be using CMD for example, and we copy the path of this folder and paste it right here, cd, and paste the path that we've copied. Okay, let's paste it. And then to run the server from command line, we type Python, and this Python will refer to this Python, right? So it's not referring to any Python that located somewhere, but it's located in this particular folder. Okay, so the executable file that Odoo used to run the server is this particular file. So you need to execute this file with Python. So to do that, we need to specify the file name, which is odoo-bin. So just like this. But I forgot something. You need to run the PostgreSQL, right? Because the application won't start if you don't run a server. So we need to run the PostgreSQL, but I want to run the Odoo server separately. Okay, now let's just enter. I'm sorry, I forgot one thing. We need to put the Python path to the environment variable. So just follow me. Just open the environment variables, okay, and go to the Python folder in Odoo and copy the path. So I'm gonna copy this and open the environment variables and click new and set the variable name as Python home, and the variable value is the path that you're copying. So just click OK and then go to path. So search for variable named as path and then open it by clicking it twice, and then click the new button and type the percentage symbol Python home, just like this. You can actually name this variable anything you want. You can name it Odoo, but you have to change the variable name that we have defined before as Python home Odoo as well. In my case, I'm just gonna be using Python home for short and simplicity. Okay, a little bit typo. Okay, just click OK and OK. Now to see if the Python is actually loaded into the system, now you have to type Python minus version. Now here you can see the Python is loaded, and to see if the Python this Python right here is referring to this particular Python, I actually forget the way, so let's just find out. Okay. Okay, so you need to run this particular command. Okay, just paste it. Why something is not pasting? Okay, now it's reverting to this particular path. So it's all good now. Now you can run the Odoo server. Okay, now we are back and type Python odoo-bin. Now let's just click enter. Okay, you can't do that because the CMD is not refreshed yet, so you have to close it. So we have to do it all over again. Okay, now open CMD, copy the path, CD to the path, which and let's type python odoo bin. Now enter, and here you can see now just click allow access. Now here you can see the Python is executing Odoo bin, which is a file that will run our Odoo server. Now it's running and we are seeing the nice logging that Odoo produces. Now if we, for example, visit the Odoo page again, and let's go back to the command line. Now here you can see directly in real time we get the logging info.
And if you want to close the connection, you just need to click Ctrl C on your keyboard twice. Okay, I think that's it. I'm gonna be moving on to the second method. Now I'm going to show you how to install Odoo from the official source or repository. And I'm gonna be using Linux for doing this, and because I'm using Windows, so I'm gonna be using WSL. If you also want to use WSL, then just follow along with me. Open Microsoft Store on your Windows 10 or Windows 11, and then choose a distro. In my case, I'm gonna be using Ubuntu, so search for Ubuntu. And as you can see, there are certain versions that you can install. I'm just gonna be installing Ubuntu version 20.04.0.4. By the way, the latest version of Ubuntu, which is 22.04, when I last tested it, it has some compatibility issues with some of the other dependencies because it uses Python 3.10, and Python 3.10 is not yet supported by Odoo as far as I know. So just so you know on that. So I'm just gonna be using this particular version, and then after that we just click install and wait for the installation to finish. And then after it finished, just open it, wait for the installation to complete, and then you will be asked to enter your new username. In my case, I'm just gonna be using my first name, and then type your password, re-enter it, and then you are done. Now before doing anything else, I want to make sure that Python is already installed in my local, and then to do that, just type python ---- version, python 3 ---- version, because we are using Python 3. And then as you can see, Linux already installed Python 3.8.10. And then I want to make sure that Git is also already installed. And to do that, just type git ---- version. And then as you can see, Git is also already installed. Pip is going to be used to download libraries. So type pip 3 ---- version. And then as you can see, pip is not installed yet, so we have to install it. And then just copy this command and paste it, and then type your password when you are prompted to do so. And if you found this error, this is basically because the local repository is not refreshed yet, so we have to update it. Sudo apt update, just wait until it finished, and then we can install pip3. Click yes. Now we just have to wait for it to finish. Okay, now pip has already been installed. Now let's clone the repository. But before that, I want to make a new folder. So to do that, in Linux you type mkdir, which stands for Mac directory, and then your folder name. In my case, I'm just gonna name it projects. And then let's go to the folder, and then I want to make a new folder, and I want to call it Odoo 14.0. Now I want to clone the repository in this particular path. And now please go to this particular URL. This is the Odoo official repository in GitHub, and then pick your version to install. In my case, I'm gonna be using version 14.0. So I go to the branch 14.0, and then you have to clone this particular branch. So to do that, you need to copy the URL and then go back to our Linux and then type git clone, enter the URL --- dept1. I'm gonna explain later. --branch, your branch that you want to clone, in my case 14.0. So 14.0, and then type --single branch. So what the command will do is, I want to clone in this URL for this particular branch, and I want to clone for the last commit. So this particular branch already has a lot of commits, but I want to clone only the last commit. And then as for this argument, I want to clone only this particular branch, so I don't want to clone the entire branches. Okay, so after that, just hit enter. And you just need to wait for the operation to complete. And now the cloning process has already done. Now if we type ls, now here you can see Odoo is already been cloned. If we cd to the folder, the files within it are already been cloned as well. And the next step is that we have to install all the necessary dependencies. So to install all the dependencies, make sure you go to the official documentation and then head over to your version. In my case, I'm using version 14, and then go to this section and then select your operating system. In my case, I'm using Linux, and then go here and then go to Git and scroll down, and then here you can see the dependencies that you need to install. So we need to copy this and then paste it right here, and then just hit enter. Do you want to continue? Yes. Type Y. And then you just have to wait for it to complete. And after it has completed, we also have to install Odoo dependencies. If you type ls, and then let's open this particular file. So to do that, type vim requirements.txt. Here you can see this is the list of dependencies that Odoo needs. We have to install all of them. So let's exit from this editor by typing colon and then type key. We have to install all the dependencies listed in this particular file. But before that, there is a library that we need to make sure that it has been installed. So copy this command and then paste it right here. Okay, both of them already been installed. So now let's install all libraries in this particular file. So to do that, type pip3 install -r requirements.txt. So this is basically telling pip to install all libraries within this particular file. So after that, just hit enter and just wait for it to finish. Now the installation has been completed. The next step is to install and configure PostgreSQL. To install PostgreSQL, copy this particular command and then paste it, type Y, and then just wait for it to finish. And after it has been completed, we have to create a new user in PostgreSQL and create a new database. So copy this command to create a new user and then paste it. And as for this variable, it's basically the username is going to be the same with the Linux username. So if you want to customize and not using this particular username, you can do that just by typing your username, for example, user1. But for me, I'm just going to be using the default. So I'm just going to be using this username. Okay. And then click enter. Okay, we forget something. We have to run the database server. So to do that in Linux, type sudo service PostgreSQL start. And to check if the database already been started, we type sudo service PostgreSQL status. And now here you can see the database server is up and running. And then let's create the user. And then after creating the user, we also need to create a new database. So to do that, copy this command. But for this time, I'm not gonna be using my Linux username because it's weird. I'm just gonna name it Odoo test. Okay. Now after creating a user and a database, now we can start our Odoo server. And to do that, make sure you are in the Odoo directory. So type ls. Now here you can see I'm in Odoo directory. And to start the server, we need Python to execute this particular file, Odoo bin, because this is the executable file to run the Odoo server. So to do that, type Python and then Odoo -bin -d and then the database that you've just created. In my case, it is Odoo test. Okay, not Python, but Python 3. And here you can see you get an error message. So basically we have to initialize our database with Odoo modules. So we have to stop the server first. So press Ctrl C on your keyboard twice. Now type -i and then type base. So this is basically telling Odoo to install base module to our database. If you get confused by this, please don't worry, I'm gonna explain it later in another video. Okay, just type enter. Now the modules loaded, so all the modules has already been loaded. Now to verify if the Odoo server has already been running, let's go to our browser and type localhost 8069. Here you can see Odoo is up and running, so we have successfully installed Odoo in our local machine. And now let's stop the server from running. To do that, just type Ctrl+C twice on your keyboard. Okay, I think that's it for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.